This is Eliezer Reese, and you're listening to Sunny Brands, a podcast where we explore the relationship between purpose, branding, and impact. On each episode, I interview the heroes behind the brands that make our world a better place. In this episode, we're thrilled to have Ryan Buchanan, founder and chairman of Thesis, a digital marketing agency and co-founder of The Script, which is a social enterprise focused on providing opportunities and support for diverse young talent. With over 20 years of experience in inspiring and partnering with renowned brands like Nike, Adobe, HP, Spotify, Oregon College Savings Plan, and Taco Bell, Ryan brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to the table. Beyond his professional accomplishments, Ryan is deeply committed to fostering diversity and inclusivity within the business community. Through The Script, he has facilitated over 600 internships for underrepresented college students and recent grads, while also providing mentorship and career pathways for individuals from marginalized backgrounds. Let's welcome Ryan. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thanks.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you today. I think almost kind of like want to do a redo for the listener of kind of a conversation that we had at a coffee shop maybe 5 months ago, 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And when I started at Notion, as anybody would do, I was kind of doing research of like who's in town and how are they communicating and kind of like what makes us unique versus what everybody else is doing. And Thesis was like one of the very few agencies in town that led with values, like communicated first with the value and then almost kind of like position itself based on values, which unfortunately not a lot of folks do. They position themselves with like, oh, we do websites or we do branding or we do that. And they kind of start there. And I found it fascinating that y'all started with values. And so I kind of, before we get into Thesis, I would love to give people like an inside preview into like your life and like your journey and how you got to Thesis and the day I met you and we sat down for coffee.
Sure. Yeah, just peel it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, so I grew up in DC area, and all high school, all of that, I was, and in college, I was always really involved in community service. Both my parents are entrepreneurs, and they've both been super embedded in the business community there. So I've always had it a part of me. And I can give kind of more the chronological bit in a second, but just to finish the point, I think what has worked well for me is, for me, building when I started the company, we were email ROI. A year later, we became eROI. And then 4 years ago, we became Thesis.
Okay.
And so starting it in the early days, the way that I was able to land clients and build the company was through being embedded in the entrepreneurial community, in the tech community, like very Portland, go in deep. And we literally had 350 small to mid-size clients that we were doing email campaigns.
Wow.
And that led to websites, to then social media and other things. But it's a virtuous cycle of being not only embedded in the business community, but also the nonprofit and the, like doing good, that comes back to you in the form of clients and great talent and all of that. So I have personally benefited from that virtuous cycle. So like, why wouldn't I amplify that with starting a nonprofit and other things around, and we'll get to that with The Script and some of the other things I've done. But I do think that, some of the things that we'll talk about is like, you're a B Corp, like being part of the B Corp community. I think a lot of that is, why not be part of a community and be recognized for the work that you're already doing that shares your values and lead with values. So that's kind of some of the childhood essence. But then when I get into the origin story behind Thesis and behind starting the nonprofit, The Script, and other things, it'll become apparent why I do those things.
Yeah, for sure. And was there like a catalyst moment when maybe the traction of like, okay, like Patagonia says, is like, we're going to be good doers now. Like, was there like a pivotal moment in the life of the business that you were like, let's turn up, let's like go there?
21 years ago, I drove my wood-paneled station wagon cross country to be a night janitor at Glacier National Park in college, then came back, worked in Central Oregon as check people into this ranch called Black Butte Ranch. Then fell in love with Oregon, got a job as a finance guy right out of college at Intel. Was at Intel for 4 years, and while it's really well run, it felt like the Pink Floyd song "Welcome to the Machine," like this very structured place where I didn't feel like I had the creativity that we as entrepreneurs have, and there was also this .com revolution that was happening where Pets.com was getting $100 million and just all kinds of craziness. But so I had a bunch of friends go to these .coms. I mentioned both my parents are entrepreneurs. I got advice from my folks. They basically said, go for it, but it's going to be a lot harder than you think. So make sure you have a little bit of a safety net to fall back on, which was helpful because I started this company called GC Materials that was kind of like, it's kind of like DocuSign.
Oh, okay.
But it was specifically for, we're in a commercial building right now, so it's specifically for a building to get built and all the paper processes to get approved by the contractor and the architect and all of that. Way too early. Failed, but I met some other entrepreneurs and I actually started this group called Starve Ups, not Starbucks. Everyone always thinks that, but we were all starving startups. We had our little thing of peanut butter was our logo of if we needed to survive, we could crack that open and live off of peanut butter. So I met a couple entrepreneurs through that who were doing this email marketing software company.
Okay.
And another friend of mine and I decided to hey, let's go for it. Let's start a full service email marketing company where we would license the software, put our logo in it, make it seem like it was ours, but then also have creative services to get a lot of digital marketing done, specifically in email. And that kind of took off. My co-founder left a year later to fully focus on his search engine marketing company. And then I let ego go to my head and it was okay, we're going to become this big scalable software company. And that was we were an Inc. 500 fastest growing company and all this stuff. And so again, a lot of, young entrepreneur, ego reinforcement, all of that, not in the best way. And so went for it, invested a bunch of my own money, got friends and family, lost $1.5 million over 3 years. Had to pull the plug, had tasted iron in the back of my throat, almost had a heart attack, almost went bankrupt, all that stuff.
Wow.
Then went back to our core. At this point, we went from 41 employees down to about a dozen. Culture was toxic. It was not good. And we kind of level set and went back to truly owning that we're an agency and we license software.
Gotcha.
And we need to go from one and done project agency to ongoing extension of digital marketing teams. Landed Nike over 10 years ago as our first large client, where we became their email agency of record. And that allowed us to go from a dozen employees to now 305, and wow. It's been a wild journey. So when getting to, I think your original question was, why, why this do-getter element?
Yeah.
And in that journey after the near business death experience and the near heart attack, all that stuff, I was at a business event that I wasn't hosting, but a lot of my entrepreneur friends were there. It was 90 business owners in a room, and while this seems incredibly obvious in hindsight, this was, again, 8 years ago, 85 of the 90 of us were white guys, 3 women, 2 men of color. I had like almost like a voice come to me of just like, oh my gosh, I am part of the problem. Like I am not doing anything to connect with leaders of color in the community. I'm just going to all of the mainstay, associations that all, look very homogenous.
Yeah.
And so my employee base looked a lot like that. So I went to a friend of mine who has been doing work in, his name's Ben Sand. He's been running scholarship programs for college students of color, high school seniors to get scholarships. And we decided to pair up and create this program, initially called Emerging Leaders. Now it's called The Script. And I wrote a blog post that next day, Portland business community, 2 white, 2 male, and the call to action from that was to get other CEOs to sign up for participating in this internship program, which has originally we matched 35 college students of color with 35 companies in Portland, and now there's over 150 companies involved, and we're we placed over 600 over the past eight years. And we're moving into a place, we're launching this summer full-time jobs for folks who are looking for underrepresented folks. So we're building not only the tools and the staff to launch that, but that was the pebble in the pond to really wake me up to make a change in thesis. And I became one of the few white guy CEOs who was just like completely outspoken about this for the past 8 years. And we went from about 10% employees of color at Thesis in 2016 to we're now 41% at all levels and 305 employees and what have you. So it's been a really, I think the why behind all of that is like there is a richness in relationship that I've made some really amazing friends, and I've learned, it's like I feel like before this all happened, I was not living in a boring world, but I was definitely living in an echo chamber and not having the conversations that would really like I don't know, just make life feel more alive, So, so I just feel like it's been this incredible two-way street and amazing journey, and so all of the things are intertwined between the Script nonprofit, between Thesis as a for-profit agency, and then the B Corp piece is. I had a friend who was on the board of the Be Local PDX here, who is just like, you're already doing the work. Just go go through the certification process and see where you end up. And it only takes a couple hours. And then if you need help, hire a consultant or what have you. But there's an amazing online tool that does this assessment tool, and I was able it was not nearly the amount of. I had it built up in my head that this is going to be hundreds of hours of work and just so brutal and all this stuff. And it was just literally less than a dozen hours. And for, several hundred person agency to get B Corp certified, 3 years ago, was not as heavy of a lift as I thought it was going to be. And now I'm in a community of 150 Oregon B Corps. You're one of them. We kind of met through that. So it's just I mean, that's just an amazing thing to be part of that community.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's so inspiring. I think in doing research for this, I was looking at the annual report for y'all last year, and the amount of stuff that y'all are doing for the community is insane and impressive. And it's super inspiring for someone who also has an agency and is trying to man, how do I do this? What? It's a service company. We don't, it's a little bit, margins a little bit harder. How do we do this? And I think that imagine that someone with an enterprise level, owning an enterprise level business is listening to this. what advice would you have for someone like that on where to get started? Like they're probably like already a good size, so it's not like starting from scratch where you can just put those values right in the business from the get.
Mm-hmm.
What are some advice that you can provide to someone like that on where to start if they wanted to get started?
Yeah, I also want to caveat that you and I both run service companies, which is easier, I think, to get certified than if you're a product company with suppliers and inventory
Yes.
and all of the environmental impact and all of that stuff versus for us, we're using our laptops.
Yes, yes.
And like
Yeah.
our footprint is
Yeah.
by design, by the model that we're in, like a lot lighter.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's like the really small company and the large company. I'll give kind of my experience on both, or at least like maybe advice I give on the small company side. I think, and this was part of our coffee conversation, like you are naturally so generous with how you run Odd Notion that some of my advice is charge clients what you're worth, and really make sure that the business is sound with like as good of margins as you can have, because it's kind of the oxygen mask. Like take care of yourself first, because that way you can pay your employees more. You aren't living like everyone in your organization isn't living paycheck to paycheck. It's like there is a generosity of spirit because you're charging what you're worth, versus the opposite of that mentality is like, oh, we got to win this business. I can only charge this much, and there's like maybe enough left over, but like we're always in this scarcity mindset, and that doesn't it doesn't allow for like long-term growth. And I think a lot of the B Corps are more on the smaller side, especially in Oregon. I've been super inspired by Tillamook, for example. $1.25 billion in revenue, over 1,000 employees, all of that, and how they show up in the community, lead with examples, bridge the urban-rural divide, and so they have different value sets for their audiences, and they have to show leadership on both sides because they're getting arrows from both sides. I just think that there are. I think in the B Corp community, we need to be welcoming of not only the small, more obviously like full green service agency, but also like iconic brands like Tillamook, who are definitely going against the grain for other traditional companies with really living into like really inspiring employee values, and so. I think I'd rather like have someone like Tillamook give, whether it's Paul Snyder or Sheila Marti or Patrick Kreitzer, like give some of their experience of how they became a B Corp, because they had to jump through a lot more hoops as a product company, much larger than Thesis, all of that. But again, for us, we started with the assessment. We realized we were already doing the work. We scored higher than 80, and so how do we get better from here is kind of how it progressed. And we're recertifying right now, because you have to do that at the 3-year mark. How long have you guys been?
Just December.
Okay, yeah. Welcome.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Yeah.
Cheers. I think so. As like B Corp and just all the other stuff, because y'all were doing like you mentioned, like B Corp was just like the stamp of the things that you were already doing. It's not like you started to do things to be certified.
Right.
In adopting good doing, what challenges did you face in that? It can come from anything like very practical, like P&L, like how do we make all this work? Like how do we distribute teams and people to these efforts? Like what were some of the challenges that you ran into when trying to like do a double bottom line approach?
I guess I'm not gonna. And my answer isn't direct, because maybe it's unlike other companies that had challenges when they were going through the 150 questions and like, oh wow, we're really falling short on all these areas. I mean, there were a few minor things that we, like our vendor suppliers could be more diverse and stuff like that, and like there was some fine tuning, but the bigger, not painful moments, but just the harder things to do was in our racial equity journey. I felt like by force of nature of what I had to lead, like really compassionate, hard conversations as a company in 2016 of like, wow, we need to all recognize, that's not how a lot of us needed to recognize our privilege and just like different areas of gaining a lot more awareness around equity. Those conversations were really hard, and where I maybe strong in like kind of a lot of the relationship side of it, where I'm not so strong is processes and getting things into systems. And a lot of the B Corp stuff is like systematizing stuff. And so thankfully, my business partner, who is now CEO and runs the company, Keely York, is like really, really good at that stuff. And she and I having the shared values around this made it a lot more long-term and systemic, rather than just sheer force of my personality from that, like kind of that aha voice coming to me moment that had me start the script and had me, start really changing the culture at Thesis 8 years ago, to then really like making sure that it was going to happen for decades and decades into the future.
In what ways, and you kind of referred to this at the beginning of the conversation, but in what ways do you think like responsible business practices contribute to the growth of a company in your own experience?
Well, so why is it important? Yeah. So I just wanted to initially do it because it was important to me.
Yes.
And I wanted to be around other people externally in the community where other business owners like yourself, where it was important. What I found that was, I don't know why it's surprising, but like we grew a ton after COVID hit. We like literally hired like 300 because we've had, natural people in our field like every 18 to 24 months. It is like the creatives tend to move around. So we've hired like 300 people, and almost every single employee who we hired was like, hey, one of the main reasons why I'm here is because y'all are B Corp. It's not like you're not just talking the talk, you're actually walking it. And so that, more than like landing new business, and which would be great, but it's really been employee like recruiting and retention of like the people feeling like, oh, I work at a company that legitimately cares about all this. Like we just built a headquarter building that's Gold LEED certified, and like employees care about that, and they should absolutely care. Like employees, especially 20s, 30-year-old employees, which is most of our employee base, like they want to work at a company where purpose matters. And I think we do that.
One of the other things I want to talk about is the script, and you kind of previewed to that and mentioning like why you got started in there. For those that like, how do you understand the problem that you're trying to solve? Like, can you explain to folks that may not know, like, what's the problem? How do you see it? And what do you think the solution is? And
so if you look at almost any major organization in Portland or in Oregon or in anywhere across the country, and you look at it in aggregate, and so you're looking at the executive suite, you're looking at board leadership, you're looking at the mayor, you're looking at government organizations, all of those things, they look a lot like me, and they don't look that much like you. So if we want for our young leaders to see it, to be it, we have to start reflecting that the leadership needs to reflect the population that organizations serve, and nonprofits, government, any organization. And right now and the data is there, again, across every single city, there's a massive gap. Yes, Portland is whiter than most other top 25 major cities, but the gap is as large in every other city as well. So we're trying to create a community of belonging and use our privilege, what have you, and our networks to open doors for folks who don't have those networks.
And what are some of like the most kind of fulfilling stories that have come out of y'all doing that?
Well, I mean, just on a personal level, I go to a ton of business journal events or like all kinds of different events, and I'll have people come up, some of whom people come up and be like, hey, I was in, at the time it was Emerging Leaders because we just rebranded to The Script. I was in Emerging Leaders, like it changed my life. I would have never had this opportunity. Now I'm like a manager at Nike, or I'm here. And like, thank you so much. And then, I mean, Thesis, we've hired like 50 people through that program.
Wow.
So it's like, and Wieden and Kennedy and Salt and Straw, and like you can, a lot of the intel, a lot of the primary brands, Tillamook, in Portland have participated in this, but the opportunity is that we're only working with about 150 companies. There's probably 50,000 companies in Portland alone.
Wow.
And so we are just such a small subset of companies that not only participate in The Script, but you see them at Taste for Equity. You see, like, it's the same companies that care about racial equity that show up everywhere.
Right.
So how do we expand that group? And our answer at The Script is that interns for a company are a lot of work, and maybe there's not as big of a return because they go back to school and you put a lot of training but if they're graduating then and you hire them full time, it's incredible, and it can help change your culture like it did at Thesis. So we are expanding our offering to be a lot more sophisticated into creating a really great matching service to bring in junior and mid-level diverse talent to companies that want to participate, and making sure that those companies are going through some sort of training around diversity and all of that, so that there's not like any kind of like tokenizing or anything like that. So,
totally.
So, but we think that the opportunity and the number of any company I talk to is like, absolutely, we're always looking for great talent, and especially looking for diverse talent. But hey, on the intern side, like we're just not set up for that. So it's like I feel like there's a lot more opportunity to impact change, but ultimately we're starting at a earlier in the career cycle, lower risk to the company, all of that, but we want to build up to where at multiple intersection points, college, junior level employee, mid-level, and then like executives and leaders, that we can create that level of belonging and that connection into jobs at companies that care about racial equity.
When it comes to like on why a big company, and you mentioned like one of the reasons why a big company should care about doing something like this is, I think it's hard when someone asks the question, you should do it because like you get all this back out of it. And it's like most people who are doing this stuff genuinely care. And this stuff and the benefits of it come out as a result, but it's not the thing that we got into it for.
Right.
But we just naturally get it. But for those who are curious, a big company, should they consider supporting someone like The Script, organization like The Script, or hiring talent, diverse talent, or
I think there's, well-quoted studies that McKinsey company did that 30% more profitable, adaptable to change, all of that, in a diverse organization versus a homogenous one. So that's the kind of like the left brain, like logic, analytical side. On the kind of your questions getting to like the business case of DEI.
Yeah.
I think there's a ton of pushback now. The pendulum has swung. After George Floyd, everyone was like, "Oh, we got to be in this," and now that there's a little economic pressure. That was a long time ago. That was many media cycles ago. So
Yes.
unless there is a personal, I don't think you can truly compartmentalize business from personal, especially as an entrepreneur. But I think any human, like that human side of it, creates dividends if you invest in that, and it's really hard to justify if you're leading a mostly white organization that you are truly all in on the human side if it continues to be homogenous, even if it performs well. But ultimately, I do think the business case for DEI is critical. And that's kind of coming back to my point of just like, we've had to work harder and harder to do internships, placements, because companies are focusing really hard on profitability, as they should. Makes total sense. The profit is there. You just have to have a longer term outlook on how those interns will come back to you in a year or two. But I think there's more immediate business case for the talent that is overlooked. It's there. Like a lot of companies aren't even seeing that talent because those diverse, younger employees are looking at the LinkedIn and the websites and seeing like, I don't want to work for this homogenous organization that's not going to value me.
Sure.
So I'm going to, go over here. And they're incredibly talented, super smart, hungry, all of that. And so many companies aren't getting access to that.
Yes.
Because they're not willing to maybe look at themselves and go like, oh, maybe I need to get out of my office and go to places where people who don't look like me are. Because most of us in power are just like, oh, everyone just comes to me. Of course they do, and that's not how it works.
It's a fascinating problem, and I become very interested when folks are able to like pinpoint the nucleus of the problem, and then the way they flesh out the brand and the way they work the problem just is so brilliant to me. So I really admire the work that y'all are doing on that front. I think I would like to end on the other thing that you have your hands on, which is We Believe in Portland, which is a movement that you started recently last year. And I really want you to share. I was a part of it. I came with my team, and we just cleaned the streets of Portland and downtown, along with another 600 folks with 130-something companies. And it was very inspiring. What was the impetus for that?
Yeah, I think so. I was at a dinner, a dozen of us CEOs, and we're really trying to focus on solutions for Portland. And even with that focus, like a lot of CEOs were just like, oh, the problem. And at the end of that dinner, I kind of walked away. It's just like, what if we just did something really simple and tangible? Because solving homelessness is not something, some private citizens can do. It's like it is hundreds of things, billions of dollars all need to come together. Government needs to be involved, all this stuff. Like I, as a social and for-profit entrepreneur, like I want to tackle things that I can make an impact on and do it directly. So why not just like get 600 of my friends together across 130 companies.
That's a lot of friends.
And no, just do some, throw a couple videos out on LinkedIn, like see. I think the city was ready for something that was tangible to like clean up the downtown Portland, like trash pickup, and then support 100 restaurants, local restaurants. And there's joy in that. It doesn't have to feel like work. It can feel like, hey, we're together, we're in person. Like this is great. And so we're now gonna do, our next one will be April 19th. We're gonna do 2 events a year. We might do a third, like tree planting type of thing. But this one will also have an after party at our new building.
Awesome.
And just really, again, uplifting, bring community together. We had a great nonprofit partner with, and continue to, with a group called Adopt One Block. And yeah, people like want, like they're ready for it, you know? So it really wasn't a heavy lift. It just was one of those, it tapped into the pulse of the city, and that hopefully the city can, and all of us can, like 2 times a year isn't too much to ask for, and other things can like kind of spur from that. And I've seen positive change, like the city is cleaner, you know, and it's, you know, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to take 3 years, 5 years, whatever it takes. It's going to be different, but it's better. It's good. So like, I think I had this like kind of this vision or whatever of just like the opposite of this is being passive is almost like being the Walking Dead. Like if we're just gonna stand by and be passive, let's just give up now and walk away.
Right.
So if you're gonna bitch about Portland and that's all you're gonna do, just move. It's like, it's that simple, you know? Like
you said it from the megaphone. You're like, get off your butt and come here and let's get to work.
Yeah, because I mean, it doesn't have to be that hard. It doesn't, and it can be joyful work, you know? So.
Yeah. I think I'm sure that social experiment has been done before, but as someone who experienced it, I found it very powerful that the thing that we were being called to do was a very simple thing.
Yeah, so easy.
Very simple.
Yeah.
And folks are like, well, to change the world, to do something good for my community, it's like such a lift. And it's like, the collective part of it was like, man, we're all here. And really, it was a symbol. It wasn't the cleaning. It was a symbol of we're here.
We care.
We care, and we're going to do something about it. And if this is a small symbol of us doing that, let's do it. What else do you got?
You're on the mic. April 19th. We're going to try and get 1,000 people there, and I'm going to get you on the mic.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
It's just like, give us what you got. Like, let's get to work. And I think it's just, I've had these conversations with friends just in the dining table where like, man, everybody kind of tired of the pessimism, you know? And just like, you just kind of found a way to channel it. And it was very simple, very smart. Just like, everybody's like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to be a part of that. So I think these, for me, it's just to encourage others. I hope this is an encouragement to others too. Like, it doesn't have to be this incredible lift. You know, it doesn't have to be this complicated, planned, programmed, you know. It's like Gandalf said on the Lord of the Rings. You know, it's the small acts of kindness that change the world, you know, and just to show up in very simple ways to do that was very inspiring. So thanks for doing that.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time.
It's been great to be here, Ellie, and it's been fun to, like, our friendship just from that coffee 5 or 6 months ago. It's been cool to get to know you better.
So, thanks for taking the time. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks for watching. At Notion is a B Corp and award-winning branding agency. We help responsible brands launch. If you're curious about how we can help you, you can check out our website, atnotion.com, and see for yourself. Thanks.